Hello, I'm Carol Nikita. 2020 marks the 173rd year since the pioneers entered the Salt Lake Valley. For many years, we've celebrated with a parade in downtown Salt Lake City. But this year, with the cancellation of all Days of 47 events, our parades have taken on a whole new look. As the pandemic swept through our communities, leaving streets abandoned and most of us isolated and homebound, we have found new ways to come together. It started in March, when schools and businesses closed and parades of cars began weaving through neighborhoods.
Since we can't be with our students, we're driving by and honking and waving.
It became an opportunity to connect with neighbors, friends, and family during a time of separation.
We wanted the students to know how much we love and miss them and hopefully lift their spirits a little bit. But really, we lifted our own spirits too because we needed this just as much. And I'll be honest, there were a few tears shed as we were doing it.
These small neighborhood parades have given us a chance to celebrate some of the most important events of our lives.
We are gathered here today to celebrate two individuals, Chloe and Wright.
And for now, these small gatherings replace the grand community events we're accustomed to. But next year, the proud heritage of the Days of 47 will go on as before. In Salt Lake City, the Days of 47 parade is the crown jewel of all parades. And we at KSL TV have been a part of that tradition since the early days of television. On July 1st, 1949, KSL TV began its first ever broadcast from a building on the corner of South Temple and Main Street in downtown Salt Lake City. The first program was a cartoon and puppet show called Lucky Pup. Arthur Godfrey was popular then, and at 9:30 at night, KSL would sign off the air with a weather forecast and a news program that lasted all of 5 minutes. Just weeks later, the station would televise the Days of 47 parade. And for the first time ever, this annual tradition would be brought into the homes of those fortunate few who had television sets. Years ago, former KSL news anchor Dick Norris talked with some of the early television pioneers who helped make this happen.
The thrill of it, you knew that everything you did was never been done before.
Yeah.
I guess the first remote we ever did was the 24th of July parade. Now this was just a month after we were on the air. We didn't have extra cameras, we only had studio cameras. And so we took one camera and took the cord and dropped it down to Main Street in front of Warren TV, put a camera there. And then we took the other camera, we didn't have any more line, so we took the other camera, took it out on the ledge on the 6th floor, and right on the corner above Brigham Young Monument, and put it on there. So you had a bird's eye view directly down on the parade.
We knew nothing about filters, had no experience with outside lighting. And I remember they stretched a phone out to me.
The broadcasting pioneers had to invent equipment and develop technique on the spot. There were no schools, no books had been written.
Yeah, those were the days of heartache and experimentation.
During those first days and weeks, everything was an experiment.
Prior to this time, only those in attendance could watch the parade. Over the years, the television audience has grown. And now, 71 years later, millions have seen the parade on KSL TV. Hundreds of thousands of people have ventured downtown to see the parade, always greeted by fanfare and festivities. This grand celebration is held each year to honor those early pioneers who came to make the territory of Deseret their home.
When they came in here, I think they claimed there was one tree, and it was a barren place.
It was July 1847 when the first group of Latter-day Saint pioneers reached the Salt Lake Valley, led by Brigham Young.
When he saw the valley, he said, "This is the place, drive on."
His group had traveled over 1,300 miles under harsh conditions by wagon to find a place for Latter-day Saints to settle.
When you're here and you're celebrating the 24th of July, you're celebrating the day that these wagons made their way into the valley.
Under Brigham Young's direction between 1847 and 1869, 70,000 Latter-day Saints walked or came by covered wagon and handcart, hoping to find a refuge from the persecution they had endured.
We have the great pioneer story when you start thinking about the settling of the Salt Lake Valley.
There were no recorded celebrations to mark the first anniversary into the valley, but 2 years later, on July 24, 1849, Salt Lake City residents were awakened by a blast of cannon fire and a brass band marching past their homes. Hundreds of people from every Latter-day Saint congregation in the Salt Lake Valley marched behind their leaders to a site near the future Salt Lake Temple, where speeches, performances, and a feast of Thanksgiving took place.
When we celebrate Pioneer Day, we ought to be cheering for those who led the way to everything that we have in this great valley.
The first celebration was the beginning of what has become one of the longest-running parades in the country. Nearly every year since 1849, people have lined the streets of Salt Lake City on July 24th to commemorate the sacrifices of all the early pioneers.
When we come to Pioneer Day in Utah on the 24th of July, we ought to all have our hearts filled with appreciation for our pioneer forefathers.
In 1882, the territorial legislature made the yearly celebration a state holiday. And during the centennial celebrations of 1947, the name for these celebrations was officially declared as the Days of 47.
It's a wonderful time for all of us to think about who made it possible for us to have what we have.
This year, the parade route in Salt Lake City will be quiet. No floats, no horses, no bands. Only everyday traffic will grace our streets. But stay with us as we experience the memories of years past. In Utah, we are known for our volunteer efforts and community spirit. It's a legacy left to us by the early pioneers. And it's that spirit that makes the Days of 47 events so memorable.
The courage of these people, the tenacity of these people, the faith of these people, those are the values the Days of 47 wants to instill in the people who live in this state.
And in fact, these celebrations could not happen without the hard work and determination of all the volunteers who are passionate about preserving the past.
The Days of 47 sponsors several different events, and each one of those events has a committee.
The purpose of the committee of the Days of 47 is to continue the vision of the pioneers, to continue their spirit.
And some of these people have done it for decades, literally decades.
This was 2016, and I just clipped these things apart.
And it becomes part of their lives and the fabric of their family.
A lot of years, Lois.
A lifetime.
At nearly 90 years old, Lois Harmon has many fond memories of helping with the Days of 47 events.
We always had trouble with the bulls because they're so ferocious.
Lois Harmon is probably the backbone of the Days of 47.
This poor little woman was walking along the road, and here she turned around, and she heard all this holler, and she turned around, and here comes a bull towards her, and she ran and jumped under a car to save her life.
All year round, their lives revolved around presenting the Days of 47 activities.
She and her husband Flip began volunteering in 1961, transforming the Days of 47 rodeo into a world-class event.
Here's Flip up here waving his cowboy hat, and these were the co-chairmen of Days of 47, Wilbur Parkinson and Kate Carter.
In the early years, funding the events was a challenge.
Days of 47 didn't have any money. We didn't have sponsors at that time.
So they drew upon the pioneering example of thrift and ingenuity and found ways to stretch what little they had.
Our bullfighters, to save some money, we'd just share our house with them. 2 of our clowns got hurt, and I walked in here one day, and I had one with a broken leg on one couch and one with the bull had got a horn down the barrel and wrecked his neck, and he was on the other couch.
Then in July 1970, President Richard Nixon came to town and attended the Days of 47 rodeo.
He wanted to see what this Western culture was all about. The Secret Service, the president, they bought out a couple of sections. They brought their children. A lot of people wanted to see him, and we did so well.
For nearly 40 years, Lois and Flip shared this passion for the Days of 47.
He was a true cowboy.
And if you're looking for a man to applaud, this is the man. For years, he and his great staff have put together some terrific events.
And at the time of Flip's unexpected death in 1997, he was serving as the president of the Days of 47 committee. He passed away just 1 month shy of the sesquicentennial celebration.
Flip is a lover of pioneers. If he were to see the parade today, I think he'd be just truly excited to see so many beautiful floats.
After his death, Lois continued her work on the committee for 20 more years. Her service lasted nearly 60 years. There are others like Lois who have dedicated years of their lives volunteering to make the Days of 47 celebrations special. For the past 24 years, Jodine Smith has helped make the parade a success.
Back in '96, my dad was on the committee, and he said, "Come volunteer and help." And I said, okay. And I've just kind of been doing it ever since.
Organizing a parade is no small feat. The committee works year-round to make it happen.
This is one of the largest parades in the United States. It's 200,000 people on the parade route. It's 120 entries, including about 60 floats, bands, horses, antique cars, military. It's an amazing parade.
It's just a fun event. It's just remembering our history, you know, all the pioneers and all they went through. I think that needs to be remembered, and so that's what keeps me going.
And every year, a team of volunteers also helps with the royalty pageant.
I have about 30 people, volunteers, who help. There are a lot of people involved in it.
This tradition dates back to 1897 when Emma Lunt was crowned queen during the Utah Pioneer Jubilee. She had 2 maids of honor and 20 attendants. That year, a grand ball was held at Salt Air at the Great Salt Lake. This celebration marked 50 years since the pioneers first came into the valley. This was 1 year after Utah had been admitted to the Union. Housed inside the Pioneer Memorial Museum in Salt Lake City.
And this is the float that they rode on.
You'll find the dresses worn by the royalty from 1947.
But you've got wagons, and you've got beehives, and you have seagulls and wheat.
This was the centennial celebration year, and Colleen Robinson was crowned queen.
It was the 100th anniversary.
That year, an elaborate coronation ceremony was held at the state capitol. And in addition to riding in the Days of 47 parade, the Queen and her attendants also rode in the Tournament of Roses parade in Pasadena, California. In July 1943, there was no parade because of World War II.
When she was in the Days of 47 in 1943, this is how they looked.
That year, the royalty never got a chance to be in the parade because of gas rationing.
Well, they kind of knew from the beginning they wouldn't be having a parade, just like today.
But 50 years later, in 1993, the women finally got their chance and were invited to be part of the parade for the first time. Marva Colette Workman was the first attendant, and her daughter recalls the thrill of seeing her mother on that float.
We just anticipated every moment until that float got there, and she was all smiles. They loved it.
This year, due to the pandemic, no pageant was held, and so the royalty from last year will continue to reign. And next year, the pageant officials say the event will be better than ever. Up next, pioneer stories that inspire a new generation.
I carried gear for Spanish fathers through the mountains of the West.
He was a father, she was a mother. They were family to me.
Musician, songwriter, and storyteller Clive Romney has spent a lifetime illuminating the pioneer experience with his talents.
Don't let them be forgotten. Don't let their memory fade away.
As the artistic director of Utah Pioneer Heritage Arts, he feels inspired to share these stories.
Ancestral
stories have great power to change us for good and help us be more compassionate and more thoughtful and more kind.
With his latest project and with the help of others, he is hoping to pass the importance of these stories on to a younger generation. The group is known as the Union Story Road Project, and the desire is to bring history to life through the arts.
We have pioneers in this state that deserve to be revered and deserve to be held up as an example of what everyone has in their own family to give them a sense of pride.
Many of the performers are students at Snow College and share their own family stories.
In the voices of those who lived here 100, 150, 200 years ago.
Talk about history and its importance and helping people find their own, I guess, desire and drive to find their own stories.
Utah has such amazing stories, not just of pioneers in the traditional sense, but the Native Americans.
I know a story. It's the story of a people pushed from place to place.
Our people tell these talented young performers share family history through song and personal connections.
My grandfather, my Shiche, Navajo language, Yodel Billa, he was a Native American code talker in World War II. Not a lot of people know about the code talkers, and for me, it's a proud moment.
Shiche never talked about his service as a code talker until 1968, when his mission was finally declassified.
The one song is about my grandpa.
Perfectly, their word for how we played our part, concealing vital meaning from our enemies.
It makes me so proud because I can say that my ancestors before me were strong, and it really does show that my line of Native American blood is unbreakable.
It's inspiring to be able to look at people that you're related to that have been able to go through these things and to come out still happy and to basically impact the generations that come after them.
At the end of our show, we give a message.
Don't let them be forgotten. Don't let the memory fade away.
It really is just so crucially important to look back and remember, and to not let these things be forgotten.
This group is proving pioneer stories are part of a strong heritage worth celebrating.
They wanted to leave a legacy for their children, something better than what they had. They endured them, overcame them, leaving me a precious legacy.
As prophet of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and territorial governor, Brigham Young felt very strongly about the importance of celebrating the strong heritage of our state and recognizing the sacrifices of the early pioneers. Historically, leaders of both state and church have marked the holiday by participating in the annual Days of 47 celebrations. Over the years, many have shared their thoughts about why this state holiday is so meaningful to them.
Today, Pioneer Day, we celebrate the entrance into the Valley of the First Pioneers. That first trek of 1847, organized and led by Brigham Young, is described by historians as one of the great epics of United States history. Today has its own challenges. We will meet them with the faith demonstrated by our pioneer fathers who went before, showing us the way to follow.
One of the reasons I love these parades is it is a chance, I hope, for people to think about what the pioneers meant to all of us. No, the things that really matter haven't changed that much. Losing a loved one, making a hard journey, doing the right thing when it was not easy to do. That's never changed.
I hope that people understand that we have an appreciation. This is not just a Mormon holiday. This is about people who blaze trails and pioneer for those who come after. And we might be a first-generation pioneer in Utah today, trying to make sure that Utah is a better place for those who come after us.
Considering all the calamities in the world,
What lessons can we learn from the pioneers?
Well, I think the most important thing anybody can learn is the spiritual inner person being at peace. The world can fall apart, the world can have lots of troubles, but if an individual is at peace within themselves, if we just be good people and try to be nice to each other and help each other, then inner peace will see us through whatever may be ahead of us.
I think to see what has happened here, that here's a community which is really an example for goodness and prosperity and reaching out for all people around the globe and being compassionate and helping others and working hard.
I love the Pioneer commemorations. I love them because it speaks to me of family. It helps us to pause. We get so busy in the present and we're always looking forward to the future, but sometimes we forget to look back. Sometimes we forget to remember. And yet we build upon all of the things that were done in the past and all of those wonderful people who sacrificed so much.
There are so many miracles in their stories, so many things that happen that can apply in our lives today. The example of early pioneers are an inspiration to our days, and we should keep it. We should celebrate it as much as we can, not only on July 24th, but every single day of our lives, because they are our examples.
As we Utahns meet the challenges of our day, may we find strength in our heritage. I'm Carol Makita. Thank you for joining us and enjoy the 2019 parade.